putting an end to identity politics. This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Alexander Alekine said this. He says, I've had to work long and hard to eradicate dangerous delusion that in a bad position I could always or nearly always conjure up some unexpected combination to extricate me from my difficulties. And when I see that as a discussion around delusions, I think of leftists every single time. Their delusions lead them into dangerous areas that they think they can escape, and they can't, particularly when it doesn't involve other people's money. When it's like, okay, so I'll use family as an example. I have a family member who I said to her one day, I said, well, you're always nickel and diming me. Hey, I need $50 because I might tire of this or something happened. And I go, how much money do you spend on cigarettes? She's a big smoker. And she's like, this much or whatever. I said, if you just cut back on cigarettes, maybe got rid of them. I said, you could save $75 a month or something like that, whatever it was. And I said, what else do you do? She says, I go out, once a week or whatever. And I said, if you cut that back to once every 2 weeks, I go, what do you spend when you go out? She told me like $50. I said, then you could save $100. I said, so we're at $175 right now per month. So I said, 175, let's just do it easy math, 150. So I said $150 a month, you could save $1,800. You get it? Easy math. So I said, and then you wouldn't have to come to me every now and then going, hey, I need $100. And I remember saying this to her. It's been probably 20 years, honestly. And so it's 6 years later from the time we had that conversation. She goes, I need $100, to do such and such. Pay you back when I get my refund check. And I went, didn't we have this conversation 6 years ago? I go, what could you have saved 6 years? So using $1,800 a year over 6 years, she'd have almost $12,000 saved up. And she's still doing the same thing. See, this is the delusion that the leftists live under, is that there's plenty of time. It'll change. My life will change and structure in this way. And they make no plans because they think somebody's there to bail them out. Now, at $100, sure, here, family member, you can have it. And I'm not looking at it as enabling because, quite frankly, I have the money. It's a small amount of money. And I don't lecture. Haven't lectured her in years. Is she doing anything different? Nope. Still struggling. Same thing 20 years later. And at some point, the light's going to come on. I'm no longer responsible. At the time when I was helping her, she was, it's one of my cousins. She was in her early 20s. And I tried to help. I gave her all the advice I could give as a good, solid, citizen of the family. And that's the end of it. Now, she'll get impoverished and go, Kevin, my kids ain't got nowhere. And she'll run to me wanting thousands. And I'll go, nope, I told you how to do it. And, of course, I'll be an ogre and, talked about it at the family reunions. But you know how I feel. I don't care. I ain't getting shot at it. But I bring this up in the context of the Russian dossier because a congressional transcript was released earlier this week, and the British spy who compiled this dossier against Trump at the time, I don't know if it was president, but he was just running at the time, said he was worried about, quote, whether a political candidate was being blackmailed or had been compromised. And what they're learning about this is, number one, it was fake information that was gathered, but quite frankly, he should have been worrying about this of Hillary Clinton. But the actual Russian collusion story, and it's going to continue. And to be honest with you, I'm bored with this topic, but I want to finish it off with this because the Democrats now find themselves caught in a vortex of lies and deceit. Robert Mueller spends more time now investigating the FBI than he does investigating Donald Trump. And my question outside of the Bannon stuff is, where's there been any mention of Donald Jr. or Jared Kushner or some of these other people that were involved in this? And the fact is, all of sane America knows that neither candidate Trump nor President Trump colluded with the Russians. Democrat told us that Trump was a puppet of Putin, and that was the collusion. And remember what Trump said of Putin and the Ukraine? How could Trump be so bold? Back in October, the State Department warned that anyone in the United States or elsewhere doing significant business with 39 Russian companies, government organizations tied to defense and intelligence sectors could be hit with sanctions starting early next year. And this list was in response to sanctions that President Trump signed earlier in August. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up, Trump, boldness against Russia and what he's been doing, what he did during the campaign, since the campaign, it's like, where do you get this collusion? He punished Moscow for its actions in Ukraine, offering leftist Democrats the bone of punishing Russia for its supposed interference in the 2016 elections. Now, this was not just a symbolic move like Obama closing the Russian diplomat offices and expelling Russian diplomats. President Trump's move hit the Russians where it really hurts, which is in the economy. That's the difference. Financial Times reported this. Russia's top banker said potentially far-ranging new U.S. sanctions would, quote, make the Cold War look like child's play, end quote, if implemented next year. Herman Greff, chief executive of Sberbank, told the Financial Times that the possible U.S. sanctions against oligarchs and the state-owned corporations would be irrational if they went as far as excluding state banks from the SWIFT payment system. So he's talking about the move that President Trump made in October, the puppet of Putin, right? That it impacted 39 major corporations in Russia, that their number one economist says, man, this could be bad news, big time for us. Delusions. That's what the left have. They have these delusions that Donald Trump's going down. I had a guy, he sent me a thing. He says, Kevin, I heard Donald Trump's going to resign on January the 20th. It's like, are you out of your mind? There's no way Trump resigns. No way, no how. That's like saying, oh, he's a warrior and he's going to suddenly leave the gladiator pit. No, you'll have to kill him and drag him out of the gladiator pit. He's not leaving. Guys, learn that we're in a different phase here. Anyway, I'd mentioned this Herman Greff guy who says that the sanctions that Trump proposed in October are big time. Well, here's what John Sobieski wrote. He says, memo to Senator Mark Warner, a Democrat out of Virginia, and Representative Adam Schiff, the Democrat out of California. Adam Schiff is the worst politician. He's worse than Schumer and Pelosi together, seriously. He says, if President Trump is colluding with Russia, he has an odd way of showing it. He unleashed America's energy resources, most recently in Alaska with Anwar, which puts downward pressure on oil prices, which is the only thing Putin's Russia has to sell. Then he revives missile defense, including a pledge to Poland to deploy missile defenses there. Now, if you guys aren't aware, the Polish people are deathly afraid of Putin and Russia invading them. Now, he goes on to say this. Now he has announced plans to reverse the policy of the Obama administration, which stood silently when Putin's Russia annexed Crimea, attacked Ukraine, and sold the Uranium's lethal defensive weaponry, including anti-tank missiles designed to destroy Putin's Russian tanks in the hands of separatist rebels. President Trump is expected to announce his approval of a plan to sell anti-tank missiles to the Ukrainian government, a move that would mark a significant escalation in lethal U.S. military support for Ukrainian forces battling Russian aligned forces in the border region, for State Department sources tell ABC News. Now, here's the reason why that's a big deal. Because there are times when we sell, quote, non-lethals to countries, and so we can get around, we're not really supporting them. We sell them, this, that, and the other. We said no, because Barack Obama wouldn't sell them lethals. Now, Donald Trump says no. They want to defend themselves. We'll sell them product. The sale of anti-tank missiles, which could possibly include U.S.-made Javelin systems, provoked a strong reaction from Russia, saying, quote, it crossed the line and could threaten to derail Trump's calls for better relations with Moscow. Now, that's the puppet Putin, right? The puppet of Putin, selling Ukraine, Crimea, weapons to fight, and essentially saying to Putin, what are you going to do about it? Now, you want to know why Trump can say that? Arming the enemies of Russians, and he can say that. I'm no foreign policy expert, but that's not what a puppet does. Sell military hardware to the enemy of his puppet master. But the reason why Trump can say that is because he knows Putin has nothing to bargain with. Nothing. The U.S. economy is our strength. I got to leave it there.
He won't stop until he's the top-rated radio talk show host in America.
What kind of weird competitive freak are you?
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.